Hey guys, in this video I wanted to show you guys my warrior build and what I've been using for PvP. If you've tried to make a character and play PvP with it in Guild Wars 2, you know just how hard it is to come with the right combination of things that works well together. So I'm going to share what I'm using so that you can try it out. I don't know if this is the best possible setup. I've only been playing warrior for about a day, I'd say. But it's a place to start. You can try it out, compare it with what you're doing so far. So first of all, I want to talk about my weapons. I really like the greatsword because of the mobility that you get from both rush, and which charges a foe, and also from the whirlwind attack. Both of these move considerably faster than just running around, and it allows you to engage and disengage, though you have to be a little bit careful when you're using rush. If you want to use this to run away, you have to either select a friend somewhere in the direction where you're going, or be far enough from your enemy that the target's going to drop off, because otherwise you're just going to charge right back at him. Doesn't work too well. I'm also using Bull's Charge here. The purpose for this is I'm going to charge a foe, knock him down, right? It always knocks down. It says fleeing foes, but that part doesn't matter. It always knocks him down. And then use 100 blades. So the problem with 100 blades is that you cannot move as you're doing this, but since the enemy is going to be knocked down, there's no problem. And my other weapon set is axes. I'm using dual wielding axes. So the offhand is you can use different things here. Some people use shields, some people use maces. I like to use the second axe because of the whirling axe ability. It's very good in a big fight where there's several players. You just hit everyone and charge your adrenaline super fast. So with that, you can focus, charge your adrenaline for eviscerate a lot faster. Now, eviscerate is a ridiculously good finisher because it's a leap attack. So no matter if they're running away from you, you're still going to chase them down with a leap and hit it. Most of the time. I mean, sometimes they're too fast or whatever. But it's very effective at actually hitting people compared to the other burst skills from the other weapons. They normally just hit the target right in front of you. So if they're moving around, it's a lot harder to actually connect. But eviscerate does a lot of damage, and it's reliable. So I like that quite a bit. Another thing I want to talk about is that both of these weapon choices have a snare. I have a throw axe on the axe build, and also on the sword you have the blade trail. So you should be able to, even if one of them misses, you can switch weapons and ensure that your target is crippled. If they're trying to run away from you, it's very, very important to cripple them. If they can just run away, even if you catch up with your mobility skills, you're still going to be at risk of being dragged into the opposing team or some other place you don't want to be. It's much better to keep the fighting local and hopefully near your team if you can manage that. Now these are the easy parts, right? Just choosing the weapons. Let's talk about the more complicated choices. Well, first of all, I think the healing is kind of a no-brainer. It's the only healing skill that removes conditions. If you're crippled as a warrior, that's a huge problem. And there's other builds like, I don't know, burning does a lot of damage. There's several reasons why you want to be removing conditions from yourself. And while 2 conditions every 25 seconds isn't quite enough, it's something. And the other skills for healing don't offer that at all. I'm also using Bull's Charge. I already explained why. I always combo this with 100 blades if I can. And I'm also using Endure Pain. Now, it's important to notice here, it says take no damage from attacks, but actually what that means is if you have conditions on you, those are still going to continue doing damage. It's only new attacks coming in for 5 seconds they do no damage, which is extremely strong when you're getting focused. It just wastes the time of the entire team if they're trying to kill you. And this build here is designed to be extremely offensive, and I rely on my mobility to run away if I'm under pressure, and on both Endure Pain and Fear Me to survive. So all my stats are going to be to offense, and I'll show that in a second. Now Fear Me has to be one of my favorite skills. It's extremely powerful in a group setting. As you can see, up to 15 feet away you have a 3.5 second flee, which just a fear attack on all the enemies. And I mean, it's CCing the entire group for 3.5 seconds, and your target hopefully will be crippled. So as he's trying to run away from you, you're just attacking him from the back the whole time. And it's extremely effective, even in a 1v1 situation. But in a group fight where your fear is disrupting the entire opposing team's strategy, it's amazing. Heavily recommended Fear Me here. Some people like to run Balance Stance and or some other skills. If you're going to do that, I would try to remove Endure Pain first, because Fear Me is just that much better. Give it a shot. And the Elite is also kind of a no-brainer. I feel like Signet of Rage is the most powerful by far. Having Swiftness up the whole time is really good. Extra 20% critical chance, even better. And the Might's okay. It's like a 5% damage boost, but it still adds up. So you're going to have all of that for most of the time. As you can see, it's 30 seconds duration with a 48-second cooldown. And that's happening because I have a trait that's reducing the cooldown of my signets. It's normally 1 minute. So if you just think about the greater proportion of time that you'll have Swiftness, Fury, and Might, it makes this this trait here quite worthwhile. And as you can see, I'm heavy into Discipline because I want to have the maximum amount of critical hit damage that I can. The idea for this build is to crit often and crit for the most damage that you can. I'll actually go ahead and show this here. So with a Signet up, I have a 67% chance to crit, this number in green, and 68% or critical damage, though I also have a trait from Axes that will give me another 10. So I'm at 78 critical hit damage. It's the absolute maximum you can have. So I decided to pour everything I had into critical hit damage. Critical hit chance was a smaller priority, but it's it's better to have bigger crits, like bursty things, and just kill people unexpectedly, let's say, before they decide to run away or use a cooldown. Just crit them for 10,000 or something and kill them, which is totally possible with this build. The Eviscerate can crit for 10,000 if everything works properly. Okay, so let's go back to the traits then. I'm going to explain my choices here. Now I already said why I wanted maximum crit damage, and then in here you actually have some choices on your traits. So let's see. This one here, Warrior Sprint, I did not pick because I felt that having the swiftness from the Signet was enough to either run away or catch up to people. And it's 10% increased move speed, so that's pretty good, but there's just so many choices here in the Discipline line that I couldn't find something that I was willing to drop for it. So obviously I want the 20% recharge on the Signet, because that means I have 25% more Fury, Swiftness, and Might compared to not having that. And that's just a big swing, right? That's a huge swing. Second, I chose to have the Heightened Focus, and as you can see, as your adrenaline charges up, your critical hit chance goes up as well. And it's actually important because once your adrenaline is fully charged and you use your Eviscerate, it counts the Eviscerate as if you had triple adrenaline charge, so it has 90% extra chance to crit. Critting with the Eviscerate is very important. And so you already saw that I had 67% crit with a Signet. When I have 3 Adren, that's going to be 76%. And on top of that, I have a critical burst over here, giving another 10% critical chance to my Eviscerate. So that's a total of 86% chance to crit. So most of the time, my Eviscerate is going to do a ton of damage, since I have maximum crit damage. But I didn't feel like you could do that, boost that even further if you wanted to, but I felt that this was enough, and I was willing to take the hit when it didn't trigger. But anyways, I like this quite a bit. It's a large increase in damage. Now there's one more choice here. It's actually something you'd have to decide, I think. I went with quick bursts, which recharges. So my eviscerate is normally a 10-second cooldown, but with that quick burst it's down to 8. And the reason for this is because you want to be using this often, right? And sometimes in a fight it comes down to, like, say, a warrior versus warrior situation. Whoever uses the second eviscerate first is going to win the duel. So I wanted to have mine recharge faster. The other reason for getting that is because sometimes you miss with your eviscerate. It's infrequent, and especially if you know what not to do, like don't try to cast it when a guy's too far away or something. And it's much better if you're already in melee range and you just want to guarantee a hit than it is to try to use it to catch up to someone. So if you miss with the eviscerate, you don't spend the adrenaline, but the skill does go on cooldown. So having the reduced cooldown is good for that. Now, what are the other options you can have here? My favorite is actually sharpened axes. You get a lot more adrenaline with if you have this skill here. So I already have a large crit chance, right? Normally, any hit will give you 1 strike of adren, and with this, a critical hit would give you 2. You need 30 to fully charge out this bar here. So 10, each of these bars is 10. So it just reduces the time in half. It's or not quite. You know, the critical hit it's not 100%, but it's a significant boost to your adrenaline generation. Nevertheless, I decided to go for the recharge for the reasons we've already explained. Let's take a look at the other trees now. So in the strength tree, I think this one here, Berserker's Power, is probably the most OP thing I've seen in terms of traits. 12% more damage on your eviscerate, plus a whole bunch of damage on, you know, your almost all the time. Like I'm charging my adrenaline pretty fast, especially with if you use the whirling axe, this one here, and you're fighting like 2 guys, that's enough to put you up to full, because it does 15 hits, right? You can see that damage 15x. So hitting 2 people goes up to 30 from 0, and after that you would have your full adren, getting 12% damage increase. This thing here is OP. It used to be 5% during the betas, and they buffed it up to 12. I'm not sure why. I don't think this was. Doesn't seem like a small increase to me. But in the meantime, just abuse it. Definitely pick this up if you're playing a warrior. And my other choice was to increase crit damage with my axe for the eviscerate. So that's bringing it up to 78%. Very strong. This is another option that you have here. I went with the vulnerability on critical hits mostly for the group benefit of trying to make the enemies vulnerable for other players to exploit. Because vulnerability is now a 1% damage increase per stack. And these vulnerabilities here last for 10 seconds, I believe. So if you think about it, it's like, you know, sometimes when you crit, you add a 1% more damage on the guy. It doesn't seem that strong, but the alternatives are kind of weak too. Let's see. You definitely don't want this because you're going to be using your Signet of Rage on cooldown. This one here is not terrible, but it's still pretty weak. The chance to proc is too small. Now the reason why I would want this is because there's the downtime on the Signet of Rage. And when you apply swiftness, and you already say I use my Signet, I have a 30-second swiftness. If this would trigger, it would extend the duration by 3 seconds. So my idea here would be, maybe if you're critting a lot, then you're padding up the duration of that swiftness, perhaps long enough for the Signet to fully recharge, so that you could have swiftness all the time. However, the 10% is just too small. I don't think it's going to work. I haven't actually had the chance to test it fully, but in the meantime, I'm just going to stick to this vulnerability plan. And the other ideas here, I mean, this is terrible, right? I already have over 50% critical chance, so this doesn't do anything for me. Plus, I don't have a way to stun them, so whatever. And yeah, so these are not too good. I think actually the bleed one could work if you had a condition damage build, which I do want to try at some point for warriors. I think that conditions are strong, especially bleed stacking. Unlike the other conditions, I'll make a separate video about that, but just a primer right now. The other conditions, poison and burning, when you reapply it, it will extend the duration. Bleeds, however, stack concurrently, so you have several bleeds ticking at once. If you can put like 15 bleeds on a guy, he's gonna melt. And conditions go through armor, so it's a very powerful way of just melting everything, I guess. I'm gonna start working on a build that uses lots of conditions, and I don't know if warrior is the best class for that, but I'll find out. And my last choice then was to get the Forceful Greatsword. I think the skill is amazing, and I'm actually going to demonstrate it here. So it has two parts that I really like. It's almost like it's two skills, two traits in one. The first part, I'll demonstrate in just a second. The Might on critical hit, and the second part here, Greatsword and Spear skills recharge 20% faster. Now that means that when you're using the Rush and Whirlwind attack, they're going to be available more often. You can move faster throughout the map, chase people down better, and I mean, it just works for everything on the build. That's good enough on its own. But now let's check out this part about the gaining might every time I critical hit. So I'm just going to do an example here, and this is kind of cheating because I'm hitting several targets. But so I'm going to Bull's Charge in, and then 100 Blades. I'm at 7 stacks of might here, 9 stacks of might, 12 stacks of might. That gives me, let's see, about 15% more damage. So just for doing a quick thing on this AoE pack, of course, you actually get a buff for like 15% more damage, and it lasts for 10 seconds, I think. So that's pretty good. What works really well is when you do a Bull's Charge on an enemy and then follow up with 100 Blades. That's going to stack up a whole bunch of mites on you. So I'm at 18, 21 mites, 23 mites, switch to Axe, Eviscerate. So that that combo of just charging up the mites and then switching into an Eviscerate is ridiculously good, and I highly recommend it. So the last thing that the build has then is the runes that you're going to use. I went with the Divinity runes on the armor. These, in my opinion, are by far the best. Maybe there's something that's really, really strong that I have not picked up on, but plus 10 to all stats means exactly that. You get plus 10 to power, precision, toughness, vitality, healing power, and condition damage. So that's 6 stats. You're getting a total of plus 60 or whatever. Now, obviously, not all of these are as interesting as, say, power, but it's still much stronger than the other options. Like the other options, like plus 25 power, and instead you're getting plus 10 to all stats. That's obviously stronger, and you're also getting the maximum amount of critical hit damage that you can get. It's a balanced thing because you're getting a little bit of health, a little bit of defense, more power, and getting the maximum crit hit damage that you can. And on the weapons, I think actually this is a very important thing, and I think they're overpowered in a way. So the runes I'm using are the Sigil of Superior Fire, which is basically I have a 30% chance on a critical to do another swing's worth of damage. It's AoE too. Let me see if I can cause it to trigger here. There. I don't know if you guys saw that fire and the damage it was hitting for, but it's about 1,000. It has an internal cooldown of 5 seconds. Yeah, so it hits for about just under 1,000 on a big AoE, and if that's happening every 5 seconds or 8 seconds, whatever, give it some time to proc. That's much, much stronger than anything else you can get on the weapon. I also picked up so I have the fire on both my greatsword and my axe, and in fact this effect is so good that I'm also using the Sigil of Superior Air. Now this is the same as fire in terms of damage, but it only hits one target, and it's still good enough that I want to be using it. Now the reason why you want to have these things is again for the burst. Their sustained DPS is higher than any other rune, like say the Force rune that gives plus 5% damage, That's still going to be much, much worse than having these. But on top of that, instead of sustained DPS, it's bursty DPS. Bursty DPS is exactly what you want. You want to get a guy by surprise, you know, Bull's Charge, 100 Blades, Trigger Fire, Switch, Eviscerate, Trigger Air, and kill him. Like, just want to do as much damage as you can in a tiny amount of time before he has a chance to run away or pop his heal or anything else. So hopefully this was helpful. I want to be making several of these videos showcasing different builds and particularly the reasoning. I mean, anyone can put up a calculator link and just tell you to copy it, but I want you to understand why I'm making the choices and what, you know, some ideas of how to play it as well. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and there will be others in the future. See you then.